Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video, I'd like to discuss the latest High Court judgment on government corruption that states that the way Conservative ministers prioritise COVID contracts to essentially friends and donors, certainly close contacts, via their secret VIP lane was, as you'd expect, unlawful. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So to contrast, I suppose, the three ways in which awarding contracts for medical PPE can work, the first way is the usual way, is that the contract goes out for tender. Interested parties submit their bids and then officials work out which one delivers what's required for the best value for public money. The entire process is open, even though it can still be subject to ministerial interference. For example, there are plenty of cases before the pandemic when Tory donors were given lucrative contracts by Tory ministers, but at least there'd be no hiding the potential conflicts of interest. The second way, a necessity of the urgent need for lots of medical equipment during the most serious pandemic in a century for the UK, is that you expedite a lot of the normal tender process because it takes too long, and you go directly to trusted suppliers of equipment in order to get what you need urgently. The Conservatives got Parliament to pass emergency powers in order to do just this. What was confusing, however, was when I was reading that British suppliers of PPE at the time, March and April 2020, were saying that they were supplying other countries, but not the NHS. They were willing to. They were willing to prioritise the British need, but they weren't being approached by the Department for Health and Social Care. We knew we were badly understocked on PPE. We had suppliers in this country willing to supply, but we weren't using them. The reason is that the government opted for a third way of dealing with things, the so-called VIP lane. Direct access to ministers, often via WhatsApp, for people close to the Conservative Party. Some were friends, some were donors, some were Conservative politicians, some were even ministers. They would get in touch with the Conservative MP with whom they had links and get fast-tracked to a government contract. They'd even be given lots of help to work their way through the process. That means civil servants, paid for by our taxes, would spend their time helping these people who didn't understand the process because they didn't work in PPE procurement to get through the process to get that contract. And why would they need help if they run medical equipment companies? And it's because many of them didn't. 2020 was the year in which a surprising number of Conservatives and friends of the Conservatives set up brand new companies with virtually no assets. Some of these companies had assets of like £1,000, £2,000 and were being given contracts for over £100,000. To get these contracts, they were setting up new companies. There was even one recently reported case of an application being referred to this VIP lane before the company had even been set up. Imagine this. Let's say your government give you a load of money to buy face masks. They say to you, look, here you go, here's like 100 grand, get us some face masks. What would you do? You don't know anything about procurement. What would you do? You go online, you try and find someone who'll sell you what you need. You probably end up getting them from China or something. You're not going to get good value for money because you don't have any contacts. You're not a regular customer or anything, and it's the middle of a pandemic. But that's okay because the government have given you way over the odds so that you can make enough money, buy the stuff at over the normal market price and still afford to buy yourself another house, as some did. That was the VIP lane. And the High Court have now agreed that it was unlawful and that some of the contracts in the VIP lane were given high priority when there was no justification for doing so. Indeed, this case has been going on a while, and the Good Law Project, who've spearheaded it, I know had emails detailing the concerns of civil servants who felt that it was representing very poor value for money. And this isn't just about spending over the odds for the medical equipment that we desperately needed. There are two other huge problems with this VIP lane. The first was that we were not getting the PPE that we urgently needed at the start of the pandemic. Like, I remember at the time Labour pressing the issue in Parliament and being fobbed off with talk of, oh, it takes time to properly vet all the office. We can't just throw public money at any old Tom, Dick or Harry, you know. We've got to check that they can actually deliver what we need. We've got to make sure we get best value for public money, you know. We had suppliers in the UK willing to prioritise the NHS. We already knew that they produced goods of the appropriate standard. They were supplying other countries, no problem at all. Why the delay? I think at the time I thought that the government were just penny pinching and hoping that delaying the process would mean they wouldn't have to fork out as much in the end. Couldn't be further from the truth. They were not penny pinching. They were actually aiming to spend a vast fortune. The reason for the delays, it now seems clear, is they wanted to funnel public money into the hands of people who weren't even set up to get the PPE needed. And the second problem was that we often didn't get the equipment at all. Bad enough that it arrived late. That cost a lot of lives. But when you give a load of money to people to buy PPE, and many of them don't know what they're doing, what do you expect? First, they want to maximise their own profit, so they go for the cheapest crap they can find. Second, they do not know that the cheap crap they're buying is even going to be worth anything. Time after time, what arrived was unusable. And here's the thing. If a contract awarded normally doesn't deliver, the government demand their money back. I mean, you haven't got what you asked for. But because the government was slinging a lot of this money towards friends and donors, that was the concern. It wasn't getting the equipment, it was enriching the people who supported them. So when the goods were not what was requested or just didn't turn up at all, we didn't get the money back, it was all just covered up. This was not just a raid on the nation's wealth, for which the public are going to be paying it back for years, maybe decades later. But it directly led to the loss of life and many suffering from long COVID. Ministers also denied being directly involved in the PPE procurement process, but this was also shown to be untrue. Quite the reverse, really. The VIP lane was all about Tory scroungers getting in touch with someone they knew who would pass on their begging bowl to a suitable minister. Officials would then be told to help these scroungers out with their paperwork and to prioritise them for dosh. Even established firms like Pestfix and Ianda were prioritised because of personal links, not the quality of their bids. And the court seems to have accepted that the vast majority of what they supplied by value was unusable by the NHS. And I cannot keep re-emphasising this enough. When we talk about the goods not being usable, we're not just saying that a load of money was wasted. We are talking about medics who went without suitable PPE at a time of urgent need. That means that people died. People died. And this wasn't a mistake. It wasn't incompetence. It was deliberate corruption that led to these deaths. That being said, the court did form the view that although the process for awarding the contracts was unlawful, that some of them probably would still have been awarded anyway, even if the proper processes were followed. But had the proper processes been followed, I think we can probably suggest two things would have happened. First, where the goods did not meet the requirements of the contract, we would have demanded the money back. It wouldn't have helped get the equipment as urgently as we needed it, but at least we wouldn't be paying for nothing. Secondly, because we wouldn't have prioritised mental Mickey from down the pub, actual suppliers of PPE would have been able to bid and would have been able to obtain far more suitable equipment than we actually did. Lives would have been saved, simple as that. But there it is, yet another case of the Department for Health and Social Care being found to have broken the law during the most serious public health crisis for a century. Another explanation of why the Conservatives want to change the rules so that judges aren't allowed to hear cases against the government. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.